tonight. More defendants have been added to a lawsuit by former students of a private Saskatoon Christian school. Also, how 3 employees foiled a would-be robber in Nipawin. Plus, why the world's permafrost rapidly thawing is a big climate change problem.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, December 13th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for watching. For months, former students of a private Saskatoon Christian school have been speaking out about abuse. They say people with the Legacy Christian Academy and adjacent Mile 2 Church are responsible for physical, sexual, and spiritual harm. They launched a $25 million class action lawsuit against alleged abusers. Now, we've learned that lawsuit is growing. Kendall Latimer reports.
So far, we've been contacted by very close to 100 former students that want to be part of the action.
The lawsuit began in August and now includes 3 more men, including a former children's director of the church.
The allegations include sexual abuse of a minor when he was the children's director at the church and school. The minor was in grade 3, 4, and 5 at the time.
Another new defendant, Saskatoon City Councillor Randy Donauer.
He is alleged to have participated in the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual abuse of children at the school and church. He is alleged to be a principal defendant, instrumental in the development and implementation of the policies and procedures undertaken by Mile 2 Church.
Donauer has denied any wrongdoing and has told CBC previously he would defend against any legal claims. More than 20 people are now accused in the lawsuit. The government of Saskatchewan has also been added.
The amended claim goes on to allege that the government has totally failed to fulfill its legal obligations, duties, and responsibilities owed to these students.
The lawsuit alleges the Ministry of Education was careless and reckless, that it failed the students and neglected its duties to protect the children in a school it is responsible for overseeing.
The alleged failures of the ministry have occurred since 1982 under the Conservative Party, the Saskatchewan Party, and the NDP. This is not political. It's a total failure of the institution.
And while they say this action isn't political, Caitlin Erickson says the current government has also failed to act since the allegations have emerged.
We didn't go into this lawsuit thinking that our pursuit for justice would end up with the government named. We thought as former students and anticipated when we reached out to the government with our very, very awful stories of abuse and our experiences from dozens of former students, that those stories would be heard. If the student group had not come forward when they did, several of these individuals who are alleged prolific abusers would still be around minor children today, and some of them would be running schools.
Allegations detailed in the lawsuit have not yet been tested in court, and there is also a separate criminal investigation underway. Erickson says the former students want to see policy change now. They also want accountability for the alleged abuse and lasting psychological harms. Kendall Latimer, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A Court of King's Bench judge has found Dillon Whitehawk guilty of second-degree murder in the death of Keisha Bitternose. The Regina mother was found dead at a home on Cameron Street in January 2020. Whitehawk was originally charged with first-degree murder in her death. Throughout his trial, the Crown has argued Bitternose's killing was planned, connected to a criminal organization, and that she was forcibly confined. But the judge explained today that while she thinks Whitehawk did contribute to Bitternose's death, she couldn't accept those arguments. The woman's father says the family is disappointed and heartbroken over the lesser conviction.
To get this kind of justice is, I say it's unfair. but what can I do about it, right? I gotta accept what they give, right? And there's nothing they can say or do will never bring my daughter back. You know, she's up there looking down. You know, like, you'll never see her smile, laugh ever again.
Whitehawk is due back in court for sentencing at the end of February. A decision on whether Regina's city manager must include a motion to end homelessness in the city's proposed budget will be handed down tomorrow. It's the result of a rare lawsuit between a sitting city councillor and the city manager. The issue was argued in court today. On one side is Councillor Andrew Stevens, who says he wants to ensure city manager Nikki Anderson follows the will of the elected council. But her lawyers say it's her duty and obligation to provide input and recommendation on what goes into the city's proposed budget. Councillor Dan LeBlanc is a lawyer. He is also representing his fellow councillor.
I feel strong about it. It's always in the judge's hands. There's no such thing as a sure thing. We'll see tomorrow, but then at least we have certainty as we head into budget debates, so that's good.
City Council is set to begin finalizing its budget tomorrow, the same day the judge will issue his decision. According to the city, the motion to end homelessness would result in a 21% increase to the mill rate. That's about $500 tax dollars more per year for the average homeowner. A convenience store in Nipawin is reviewing its security measures after a dramatic attempted robbery last week. On Thursday, a man with a loaded sawed-off shotgun walked into the Esso Paramart. The man pointed the gun at multiple workers, instructing them not to move. But as you can see, 3 employees jumped the man, subdued him with a chair, and then got the would-be robber to the ground. They were able to wrestle the weapon away from the man and call RCMP. Police say the 25-year-old man was arrested and charged with multiple offenses, including armed robbery. The store manager says there will be a debrief to discuss what employees should do if something similar were to happen again. Now, by now, you've probably seen the special weather statement for Saskatchewan. Ethan Williams joins me now with more details. Ethan, what can we expect?
Well, a little bit of snow coming our way, Sam. And let's start with what we know so far about this system. It's Colorado low, of course, and it is part of a wider weather system really stretching all the way from us here in Saskatchewan and Manitoba all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. On the north side, we are looking at snowfall and some mixed precipitation. Down in the southern United States, they're looking at severe thunderstorms and even a few tornadoes being reported at this time as a result of this. We know that for us, this is going to begin tonight, lasting through Friday, kind of a prolonged system, not a real big punch in a short amount of time like we usually get with these types of systems. And of course, you should plan ahead for storm impacts. Have an emergency kit ready for this. We never know when power could go out, and of course staying off the highways likely until Saturday is probably going to be a good idea as well, especially east of Regina, where we have the special weather statement in effect for places like Regina, Weyburn, Estevan, up toward Yorkton, all along the Manitoba border. Could be upgraded to blowing snow advisories as we get a little bit of wind moving in, but I don't think we'll see blizzard advisories because the wind is not going to get that breezy. Just how much snow are we going to get, Sam? I'll let you know a little bit later in my full forecast.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Leadership Tips, Indigenous Worldview Edition. That's what Chief Cadmus Delorme of Cowessess First Nation offered some Regina students this week. Through humor and storytelling, Delorme told kids and teens about what they can do to become good leaders in the future, but also how their actions now can help society move forward in reconciliation.
Thank you all. It's a big honor to be here. Ogamau, Cadmus, Natisi, Kasu. I just said in Cree, my name is Chief Cadmus Delorme. I just wanted to give them a little bit of leadership tips from the journey I've been on, but also Indigenous worldview leadership teaching and how welcoming in that would help them in their role as being leaders.
Well, I think it's an important opportunity for the school because everybody can hear from him. You know, he's a big guy around here, as you can say. He's a pretty cool guy, and I have lots of respect for him. And it's good to hear from him. It's good to have him around.
We want parity. We want like everything life offers, but our Indigenous worldview strong. And that's why it's important when I say we didn't inherit, we inherited this moment. We didn't create it. So don't get hung up on the challenging things, because the truth you have to know. But really focus on what reconciliation means, because that's reconciliation.
Reconciliation really means to like give anything a new start to me, like how Indigenous people have been treated till now. So we're transitioning into a good period, like a newer time. So I'd probably say that this period is like really good to like start again or have a new foot forward.
I think it's so important for young people to, to want to learn about other cultures, because we find that when we do that, we are way more similar than we are different.
It's always about relationship. Understanding that we inherited this moment. Let's lead with our heart. Let's, make sure that we all understand the truth. And together, reconciliation could really be attainable within 1 to 2 generations.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders have named their new offensive coordinator, opting to promote from within to replace Jason Moss, who was let go at season's end. It must have been a frustrating search for head coach Craig Dickinson. Several potential candidates either turned down the Riders' offer or pulled themselves from the running before it even started. Running backs coach Kelly Jeffrey was a candidate from the beginning, and he got the job in the end. As he was apparently never Dickinson's first choice, he became the only choice. Jeffrey says he will use that as motivation.
I'm very fired up. I'm pumped about it. I'm going to hold that as fuel tight to me. And as people turn this down, I think if they're so great, then the circumstances about this organization shouldn't matter. If they're worried about, the head coach or GM, their status, those things shouldn't matter if you think you're the guy for the job. I think I'm the guy for the job. Those things don't concern me at all. We're going to move this thing forward. I'm pumped. I cannot wait to get started. And I'm betting on myself. And if you bet on yourself, then the outside factors, they don't ring true.
While complimentary of his abilities, Kelly Jeffrey did not endorse Cody Fajardo to be his quarterback in 2023. Sounds like the Riders will have to look to free agency to find their next QB. Also of note, the CFL released the 2023 schedule today. The Riders open their season on Sunday, June 11th on the road in Edmonton. They host the Bombers the following Friday in their home opener. Well, things are getting a little festive in Saskatoon as those lights sure add some color to yet another dreary day. If you're the counting kind, we are 12 sleeps or shopping days from Christmas. What kind of weather will we have in the lead up? Ethan will have more in his forecast after the break. Climate change affects us all, but in northern Canada, the effects are happening at a much faster rate. In the Arctic, permafrost thaw is becoming a growing concern. And that affects not only those living in the region, but those further south as well. Meteorologist Christy Kleiman-Higa explains.
Imagine if a whole new country popped up tomorrow, just out of nowhere. A whole population emitting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. It sounds like a big problem, right? Well, something like that could happen over the next 80 years as permafrost melts. Now, unless you live up north, you might not think a lot about that thick layer of frozen earth covering close to half of Canada, but it's really important to a lot of people. And as a meteorologist who did live up north, I've been fascinated by it. Now, new research shows the melting permafrost will have a huge impact, and not just north of 60. Permafrost is a thick layer of earth that remains frozen year-round, and in Canada, we have a lot of it. It holds massive amounts of carbon and microorganisms. Now, Canada is the second largest permafrost country in the world. In the northern prairies and the southern territories, it begins around a meter below the surface and reaches depths of about 15 meters. But as you head north, some areas see permafrost to depths of 700 meters or more. Now, every summer, the layer of soil on top of that permafrost will thaw, allowing vegetation to grow, and then will freeze again in the winter. But with climate change, that thawing layer is getting deeper. And that creates a whole host of problems. The permafrost melting has a huge impact on the entire world, and that's because of what's inside of it, carbon.
At current, there is probably almost twice as much carbon in permafrost ground as there is carbon in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide.
You heard that right. Twice as much carbon in the ice as there is CO2 in the atmosphere. Permafrost is full of undecomposed plant matter that has been accumulating for thousands of years. And when it melts, that carbon in the ice becomes carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere. David Olefelt says in the future, our permafrost emissions will likely be bigger than our fossil fuel emissions in Canada. But just how much depends on how much the planet warms. Based on the study, future emissions by the end of the century range from 55 billion tons of carbon in CO2 equivalents to 232 billion tons, depending on how much we're able to reduce emissions in coming years. But let's put those numbers in perspective. This is how much carbon Russia, the US, and China would release by the end of the century based on how much they released in 2019. Compared to the permafrost melting, it's like adding another country to the mix.
So it's like you would add another, European Union, for example, from now until year 2100 at the emission rate today.
And it's a cycle too. The more greenhouse gases we emit, the warmer the planet becomes, the more permafrost melts, which adds more greenhouse gases, and on and on. That's why Olefelt says reducing emissions is crucial.
Any reduction we do in emissions in slowing down climate warming means that we're going to release less greenhouse gases from the Arctic.
So where do we go from here? The study sounds pretty scary, but Olefelt says permafrost melt won't be responsible for runaway climate change. It's an accelerator, more fuel to the fire.
At the same time, we're quite certain now that it's not something that's so small that we don't have to worry about it, right?
And finding out exactly how much emissions we're talking about will take more research because with science, there's always that degree of uncertainty. But one thing is for sure, the permafrost is already changing, and that has huge implications for all of the people who live on top of it. Entire communities are built on the permafrost. Those homes, buildings, roads, and bridges are all at risk as permafrost thaws and the ground shifts.
If people are going to live in an area where their houses are under threat because their houses are sinking in one area, one side of the house is sinking, the other side is not, or if the sewage pipes in their village are going to be broken because the permafrost thaws underneath the sewage pipe, or if the power poles tilt over because of melting permafrost, then this is something for everybody to be concerned about.
So definitely a problem that Northerners are already facing, and as emissions increase from the Arctic, it'll be something for us all to think about.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. 22 model clear out is on now.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now to talk about the opposite of melting. We are just waiting on that snow.
Yes, and wait not much longer though, Sam, because as we take a look at satellite and radar, that system is slowly but surely making its way into the province, the very southeast corner, seeing a little bit of that snow right now. Just take a look at this thing. Very heavy snow through South Dakota, North Dakota, even a bit of thunder snow in there as well. A few lightning strikes here and there. Very messy as you work your way eastward toward the Twin Cities and into Wisconsin. But very messy as we go southward. This is an ongoing tornado and severe thunderstorm outbreak in the southern United States. Squall line developing here now and a few discrete supercells popping up through Louisiana. But as we come back home, it's just all snow for us. High pressure starting to dissipate overnight tonight through the province. And you can kind of see we have two systems at war a little bit here. This lighter band of snow, which is moving northwest to southeast through the day tomorrow through the province. Snow from this Colorado low moving in from the southeast to northwest. And it's going to get a little bit heavier as we head through tomorrow night and into early Thursday morning. This whole system kind of congeals together. And again, really that southeastern and east central part of the province is going to see the most effects from this. Thursday, Friday, some lingering snow, definitely some lingering cloud cover, and before it moves out into Manitoba. And then we have another system which is moving into the north of the province over the weekend. Shouldn't affect the south all that much, though. Snowfall amounts overnight tonight into tomorrow afternoon are going to be relatively light, around 5 centimeters or so in southeastern Saskatchewan. But then again, as we head into overnight on Thursday, those are going to begin to pick up. And keep in mind, these amounts may be a little bit heavy, especially closer to Regina up to Yorkton, or maybe even even a little bit light in some of the higher elevations. We could still see some higher amounts there than that other system, bringing through a few centimeters to western portions of the province. All in all, likely 10 to 20 centimeters the further south and east you go, with some locally higher amounts by Saturday. For the north of the province tonight, we are looking for a few centimeters in western sections, and then that Colorado low is actually so wide-reaching that we'll see some effects from it on the eastern side in places like La Ronge and Pelican Narrows up toward South End as we head into the weekend. Now, wind gusts will pick up a bit, not the strongest that we've seen with these types of Colorado lows, but we could get gusts tomorrow afternoon close to 40 kilometers an hour. They'll really start to pick up as we head through the night Thursday and into Friday. And Friday, even with a little bit of snow and some higher wind gusts, we could see some reduced visibilities, maybe some highway closures. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we have to be careful about some potential power outages too. But it looks like we're in the clear by the time we get to Saturday in terms of winds. Visibility is likely going to be dropping throughout the next couple of days, as I mentioned. So keep an eye on the highway hotline too. After that, we are looking at a very, very big cool down, big troughing in the upper atmosphere over these next few days, and much cooler conditions coming our way, as you will see here in our 7-day forecast for Regina, where the temperatures are just going to keep dropping after we see the snow and those overnight lows getting dangerously close to minus 30. Similar in Saskatoon, well below normal for this time of year before we hit the end of the week. And we are looking for snow to likely move out of Saskatoon. Won't see quite as much there, Sam.
Better to get that snow and crappy road conditions out of the way before people start traveling for the holidays.
Exactly.
All right, thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Stay with us. We have more news after the break. The man who conducted an independent review of Hockey Canada leadership appeared before a parliamentary committee by video conference today. MPs had a chance to question former Supreme Court Justice Thomas Cromwell on some of the troubling findings in his review. Cromwell was also asked about the recent list of candidates nominated to sit on Hockey Canada's new board.
I've had zero involvement in either the recruiting, selection, or nomination of candidates, and so I'm not close to the process. I certainly had no role to play in any selection aspect of their work.
9 new names have been suggested to fill the vacant board seats. The board stepped down in October after weeks of scandal surrounding several cases of alleged sexual assaults by players. Cromwell's report found significant transparency and oversight problems at Hockey Canada and found Hockey Canada used various funds to respond to sexual assault claims. And Mr. Ethan is back with one last look at tonight's weather.
And we're going to start to see that cloud cover build in at midnight, Sam. We're looking for minus 12. Winds not actually too bad at midnight. As we get into the morning hours tomorrow, that's where we're going to see that cloud cover build in. Maybe some flurries by 8 a.m. Winds picking up just a little bit through the day. And snow, of course, going to be the order of the day. We'll get some light snow by noon, around minus 12, which is where our daytime high is likely going to land, getting over 30 kilometers an hour for wind gusts. Saskatoon, you'll be a little bit clearer, but colder tonight at minus 21, and tomorrow morning dropping to minus 22, but winds going to stay light. And then as we get into the afternoon, it looks like mix of sun and cloud. You're going to likely avoid that system for the most part, but a little bit on the cooler side, Sam.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Glenn Reed will be back with more local news tonight at 11. Thank you for watching and have a great night.